Welcome to the Embodiment Conference 2020, also on behalf of the whole team behind the scenes. Thank you for your attention to another amazing presentation about intimacy and relationship. My name is Ilan Stefani and it's my pleasure to be sponsoring this channel, as I deeply believe that aliveness, embodiment, intimacy, relationship are key to individual and global change. My ongoing somatic research is focused on more and more aliveness for each and every one of us. I tune into the fields of collective trauma, of intimacy, of love and rage, shadow work, and a higher and higher level of energy. If you are curious about my work, you might want to catch my presentation on this channel as well as on the main stage. And you can also head over to my website ilanstefani.com. My methods have been described as an embodiment training for warriors. However, you are so welcome to find out yourself. I teach online and in person. I teach in German as well as in English. Thank you for your attention and please enjoy the following presentation.
But this session is with Hilary Gamble, and I think I'll just say a few words and then ask you actually to share a bit more about your own story as well that brought you to sharing what you're sharing. So Hilary is a holistic sexuality mentor and educator. She's also a Jade X specialist and facilitator of sacred feminine courses, retreats, and trainings. I myself have also visited her beautiful space that she co-founded on Koh Phangan in Thailand, which is the Jade Temple, a space that really creates room for women to come together and share about various topics within the field of intimacy, relating, and self-care. So today we're speaking about feminine self-care. And maybe to jump into that straight away, you can share a little bit about what that even is. What is embodied feminine self-care and how does that differ to maybe regular self-care, which is necessary for all of us? Hold on, I'll need to unmute you again. Just yeah.
There we go. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. So I love this question so much. I teach a lot of introduction to embodied feminine self-care classes, and a lot of the times women come to these classes and they have no idea what to expect. They're like, embodied feminine self-care, like, what is that? I have no idea what that is, but like somehow I'm a little bit intrigued by it. So I always start these classes off and I'm like, well, what is it? Let's tune in right now. Like when you hear these words, embodied feminine self-care, what comes up? Like, what do you think maybe we'll be talking about in this session today? And for those of you who are here live, you're very welcome to, and I'd actually love it if you just put a couple of words into the chat box, knowing that there are totally no right or wrong answers to this. But yeah, I tend to think of embodied feminine self-care as any practices that directly connect us to not only our bodies in general, but specifically to our female bodies. Yeah, someone said discovering my flow. So it's like, what is your flow specific to your female body? So when I say female body, I mean the breasts and the yoni, the whole pelvis, all of the sexual and the reproductive organs. So embodied feminine self-care is really about making contact with the female body, not from the outside, because we are so taught as women to relate to our bodies and especially our female bodies with how they look on the outside. But with embodied feminine self-care, we're going down and through. And it's like, how do these parts of my body feel when I just simply drop my attention to them? When I begin to feel the life force that is present in these parts of the body. Embodied feminine self-care, first and foremost, it's about just making a connection with the female body, something that as women we're really not taught to do. And in fact, I find that most women, and this was absolutely my case, we're taught the opposite. We're actually taught to push down all of the stuff that we hold in our female bodies. We're taught not to go there. It's not okay. It's not safe. Maybe we're holding wounding, personal wounding or cultural wounding, all of these messages that we receive about our sexuality, about our female body. And so again, embodied feminine self-care, it's about going there from the inside, feeling, connecting, creating a new relationship with the female body from the inside out. So that's really the foundation of it.
Beautiful, thank you. And I also noticed someone in the chat actually saying that they're here because they're not sure what it actually is, but they want it. So that brings me to the next question. Why? Why does it matter? Why should everyone with a female body or like engaged into that practice? And maybe you can bring in some of your own journey and what brought you and what change it had.
Yeah. First, I just want to like address this comment in the chat box, which is so common. I don't know exactly what it is, but I want it. What is there? And I see this so often. It's like women, and actually this was like a big part of my own journey as well, feeling like I was disconnected from my female body. Like my sexuality was there and it was in my life, but it was almost like I kind of describe it as being like this lukewarm thing. Like it was like, okay, but it's like, I had this intuition that as a human and as a woman, my capacity to experience joy and pleasure and spirit and love and connection with my female body, with my sexuality, first and foremost for myself, and then of course to choose to share this with a partner if I wanted. I had this intuition that it was like limitless, endless, yet I didn't know how to get from where I was to where I wanted to be. So that's kind of that's the why. It's like, because there is so much life force energy, creativity, aliveness, passion, purpose, spirit, intuition, wisdom that comes from these parts of the body, that come from specifically our breasts, our hearts, our womb space, or the energy of the womb and the entire yoni. So yeah, like my journey really began because I felt like I was missing something, actually. Like I had been on a very strong path of yoga and meditation and spiritual development and self-development for many years. I was teaching yoga, I was teaching meditation, and I really felt that like my sexuality was kind of here over in a box, like just like this little box that I accessed when I wanted it. But I felt like if it was this integrated part of my entire being, that it would not only have an influence on my sensuality and my pleasure, but on my entire life, on my relationships, on just how I was living, what I was doing in the world, how I was walking in the world, how I felt within myself, and how I was using my energy to create in the world. And I wanted something different for myself. And I guess there's one more component that I should say, and this is really important, and I find this to be true for a lot of women. Something that really, really drew me to this journey was my own need for healing. I had experienced sexual trauma as a teenager and also in my mid-20s. And although I had done some work looking at this in more like traditional therapeutic settings, it was really at the level of the mind and a little bit at the level of the heart that I was facing these wounds in my body. And I felt like I needed to take it a layer deeper to the whole womb area, to my entire pelvis, to the yoni, to find this deeply integrated sense of healing and embodiment.
Thank you, Hilary. Could we maybe say a few more words about what the price is that you pay if you don't put emphasis, attention on that particular as a woman?
Yeah. Such a good question. Here's the thing. It's like, I feel that a lot of women go their entire lives really without knowing that they're paying a price, as you say, Christina, just kind of going throughout their lives, and like, life is okay. Like, you know, and this is how my life was. Like, my life wasn't horrible by any means, like, but I felt that I was living in a way that was just kind of like I wasn't really expressing my gifts in the world. I wasn't really living in alignment with what I felt was my purpose or my calling, or something that was really like in alignment with the highest calling from my heart, from my spirit, from my soul. And so I feel that, you know, the price to pay is like living a life that's okay, but maybe that's not filled with like a deep level of connection or passion or meaning or purpose or intimacy, both with yourself and with a partner, and absolutely with spirit as well. So, you know, it's like you can, like anyone, woman, man, can go through their lives without really embodying their sexuality or their femininity or their masculinity, and life can still be beautiful and fine. And we can find this level of embodiment and connection and resource, actually, where we can draw on these parts of our body, and we can draw on the creative life force energy to fuel us in all areas of our lives, not just sexuality and relationship, but whatever we are endeavoring to do in our lives. So, you know, it's kind of like I said, like before, I felt like my sexuality was kind of like this lukewarm, like, you know, okay thing. So it's the same in life. It's like life can be okay, it can be beautiful, or it can be like freaking amazing and exciting, and like you wake up and you're like, yes. Or you might wake up and you're like, oh my God, like I'm feeling the depths of despair. So it's like you get like the full range of human experiences when you actually decide to go and access your sexuality, because these are some of the places where our deepest shadows are hidden, our deepest woundings, our deepest traumas. And when you have the courage to go there, and when you go there slowly and safely, it opens space for immense beauty and love and passion and the intuition of the divine to really come through your body and your life and your sexuality. And it's just a beautiful and magical experience to have as a human.
Thank you, Hilary. So my next question is also, because we're on this conference, really looking for some takeaways, some how can I implement that into my life right now? How can I make this an embodied practice for myself? Could you share a few feminine self-care practices that any woman could integrate into their life right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the cool thing about feminine self-care, is that it doesn't have to take over your life. It doesn't need to be like a 3-hour-long practice every day, or even an hour-long, or even a half-hour-long practice every day. I'm a huge, huge fan of implementing these practices in like little small bite-sized pieces as consistently as you can. So actually, maybe I'll just guide some of the listeners right now through a very simple, like 1-minute practice. That's an example of what we're talking about right now. So if it feels okay for you, you can take one hand and place it across the center of your heart, and the other hand on your lower belly. And you can close your eyes if that feels right for you. And as we're here with hand on heart and hand on lower belly, I'll also invite you to just shift your awareness a little bit to feel how, if you're a woman, your hand is also over your breasts and over your womb, or the energy of your womb. So just simply contacting these areas of your female body with your attention and with your breath. So you can breathe deeply all the way down into your pelvis, into the whole yoni. It's all of the sexual and reproductive organs, and really like imagine them coming alive with your breath, with your awareness, with your love and your presence. And then just exhaling and softening the whole pelvis, relaxing it, releasing it. Let's just take 3 more breaths like this, inhaling deeply down into your whole yoni. And with the exhale, you soften, you melt, you release any sort of holding physically, emotionally, energetically. And again, inhaling deeply. Exhale, softening. And one last breath. And this time when you exhale, I'll invite you to make a sound, almost like the sound is supporting you to clear anything that you may be holding in your female body that's ready to release. And then just taking one last moment here, just contacting through your love and your presence, contacting these different parts of your female body. And sending a little smile there. And then maybe just starting to shake your body a little bit, stretching your hands up, stretching your arms, just allowing a little bit of organic movement to come in. Okay, so this is like the simplest and most basic way to begin to connect with an embodied feminine self-care practice, is just simply by bringing your attention, your awareness, your focus to the different parts of the female body. And this is actually like, even though it's so simple and so basic, this is revolutionary. Like, could you imagine what might happen in your life if you even spent like 1 minute per day with your attention just in your breasts and in your yoni, in your womb space? I don't know what would happen, but I imagine something pretty beautiful and deep might start to move. So again, that's just like the most simple and basic, and I'm happy to share some more practices if you think that would be useful, Christina.
Yes, absolutely. I would also invite those who are with us live now to maybe share in the chat how that was for you when you did the practice with us. What did you experience? And then if you're willing to, if you have a few more pointers or practices that can easily be integrated into daily life, that would be wonderful. Also maybe addressing how can I set the space for that? What are these exercises? Yeah.
Yeah, so I love these comments, tingling and warmth glowing, really want to love myself more. Yeah, it's so, to me, it's just so fascinating how like just simply bringing the attention, the awareness, the breath to the female body, like it changes everything. It's the simplest practice and in some ways like the most advanced practice to continue to cultivate in our lives as women. Yeah, sadness for not doing this before. This is like a very, very big thing that comes up a lot. So I see you for that, and I honor that. A lot of the times when women start to go to their female bodies, especially if you've never done this before, it can be like, oh my gosh, like I've been neglecting this beautiful part of myself for my entire life. And there can be a lot of sadness or sorrow or grief or even anger or like fear or different emotions that arise. And that's like, it's really, really normal and really beautiful to begin to contact these experiences. Yeah, I'm reading this other comment as well. I had a hysterectomy in July. I can still feel yoni, but feel the grief of letting the womb and ovaries go. I've also heard this from so many women and have worked actually one-on-one with many women who've experienced this also in their lives, and to begin to go to the energy of these organs, which all of us can do actually, and to make like to reconnect, it's incredibly restorative. And the beautiful thing about woman's body and about the yoni is that it is so resilient. Like, even if we have never gone to our bodies, if you've never gone to your female body for your entire life, even if you're carrying deep, deep wounding or trauma, I find, and I found in myself and in working with so many women, that your yoni is always there waiting for you, like so happy and so joyful and so honored that you're coming to her, that you're beginning to make contact, that you're beginning to reconnect and create a new relationship. So I always love to say it's absolutely never, ever too late to do these practices. Yeah, just reading some more of these beautiful comments. Yeah, it's sad that it wasn't until recently that I acknowledged my womb space as sacred. I know. This is a big part of the practice as well. And, you know, not everyone has like this spiritual inclination, but I found that it's something that can be so powerful. I mean, like literally the womb is the part of a human's body that gives life, that gave life to everyone on the planet. So if that's not sacred, I don't know what is. And for a woman to begin to develop this connection with the womb and with the whole yoni, like, this is what's so beautiful about it. It is sacred, it is sexy, it is sensual, it is passionate, deep wisdom comes through there, intuitive voices and hunches come through there. So it encompasses so much, or at least it has the potential to encompass so much in our lives. Okay, that was a little bit of a tangent there. I can share a little bit more practices now. So maybe I'll just share, like, aside from the practice that I just guided, just simply bringing the attention and the awareness and the breath to the female body, breast massage is probably my all-time favorite embodied feminine self-care practice. So there are some specific techniques with breast massage. However, you really can do it like just sort of free-flowing. And this is why I love breast massage so much. So according to the Tantric tradition and the Taoist tradition, which are two traditions that I've studied and practiced in a lot, women's breasts are considered to be the positive poles in her body. So there's a lot of talk of polarity within these systems. And the positive pole is the part of the body where we as women, generally speaking, can go to with the most direct access to cultivating nourishment, love, sexual energy, and connection. Like the easiest and the fastest. And not that we're necessarily looking for like the fastest and easiest route. It's not really about that. But these are portals, we could say. So when we do breast massage as women, first of all, it's a beautiful, beautiful way to begin to replenish ourselves, to give back to ourselves in the part of the body that can really like build up almost like a storehouse of energy. You know, women, we tend to be givers. We give to everyone in our lives, our partners, our children, our jobs, our passions, our projects. And for a lot of women, we tend to give back to ourselves the last. So breast massage is one amazing way to begin to like restore this connection with ourselves, build up a sense of nourishment, and also build up a sense of self-love. So the breasts are really connected to the heart. And you know, for a lot of you, I'm sure that you're into self-development work and spiritual development work even, and there can be a lot of talk about self-love in these schools of thought. But how to really, really embody and cultivate and harness self-love in a woman's body from the inside out. In my experience, breast massage, and even just going a step earlier than breast massage, just holding the breast, holding the heart, breathing into it, feeling the breasts from the inside out. This is one amazing way to begin to cultivate a sense of self-love and love in general in our lives. Breast massage is also amazing because it cultivates sexual energy. So again, this is the positive pole in a woman's body where we can build up our creative life force sexual energy. So a lot of women don't have so much sensation in their breasts or in their nipples. I hear a lot of women saying this to me. I hear a lot of mothers who have breastfed before saying, oh my gosh, my breasts have changed. I don't feel so much anymore. Like, what can I do to restore this connection? And breast massage is a beautiful, beautiful tool really for any woman to begin to restore this connection, to find this sense of nourishment and even spirit, and to begin to cultivate sexual energy. So like I said, you don't necessarily need to use any specific technique for breast massage at the beginning. You can do it over your clothes to begin with if you want to, or how I really recommend to do it is removing your top, removing your bra, and doing it with any kind of skin-friendly oil. I love to just use coconut oil. And, you know, instead of just kind of like going like this and like starting to massage your breasts, like use this as a beautiful time to feel your body from the inside out. That's what we're doing in feminine self-care, is cultivating this inner connection. So we move from identifying with how we look on the outside to how we feel on the inside. So massaging your breasts in any way that feels good to you, that feels nourishing. Maybe it feels sensual, maybe it feels sexual, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It's really like beyond that, it's about starting to create this connection with your breasts. How do they feel? What are the sensations on the inside? And I love breast massage because it can literally be 30 seconds long. It can be in the shower, or it can be like a deeper, longer practice of 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes where you're really going super, super slow, feeling everything. Maybe emotions begin to arise within you, which can also be common. And really, really spending that time to get to know yourself, to hang out with your breasts, to acknowledge them, to be with them, to cultivate this relationship with them. So that's the breast massage practice.
Thank you, Hilary. There were a few comments while you were speaking that I want to pick up, and as well maybe add a layer, and you could maybe speak to this. The element of body shaming, and especially female bodies having to sort of adhere to this beauty ideal, and thereby we direct a lot of criticism back at ourselves rather than that self-love you keep talking about and that care. How can these practices counter that? Do they? And then I'll ask the other question after.
Yeah, sure. I love this question. I don't think there's any woman in the world, well, maybe there are a few women in the world, but most women in the world have experienced some sort of body criticism, self-criticism, or shame. And again, like I've mentioned a couple of times, like as women especially, we really are conditioned to see our bodies, to identify with our bodies, with how they look on the outside, with how they look in the mirror, with how they look reflected back to us, maybe from a partner, with how we measure up to society's standards for how we should look. And these practices, these feminine self-care practices, I believe they're the antidote to that, because it doesn't matter how you look on the outside. It doesn't matter what you've experienced in your body that may have instilled a sense of shame or criticism. It doesn't matter your size or your age or your color or your background or anything like that. This is accessible to any woman. So I really, I've found so deeply in myself and in so many women to counteract this shame and this criticism. I mean, there's several different ways, but number one is like going in and out. It's not like, how do I look in the mirror on the outside? It's like, how do I feel on the inside? Like, can I even hold my hands like in the energy field of my breasts or in the energy field of my womb or my yoni or my vagina and feel this from the inside? And, you know, for some women, there might be pain there initially. There might be like a shame or even a disgust or a fear, like this whole range of like difficult emotions. But one of the ways that we start to weed that out so that we can contact the natural radiance that lives inside of our body, that our sexual energy can facilitate an opening, is by just bringing the attention to the female body. It's by doing these different practices. So I mentioned the breast massage. We did the meditation just by contacting the different parts of the body with the attention and the breath. The jade egg, some of you may have heard of that. This is another amazing, amazing tool for connecting with the female body on the inside and literally like lighting the female body up with our own natural radiance from the inside out. Really, that's what these practices are all about. And I find that instead of like trying to love ourselves or trying to accept the way that we look on the outside, maybe by standing in front of the mirror and doing affirmations, and like this can be beautiful, don't get me wrong, but to really like complement that is this inner practice of like really, really harnessing the female energies in our body and allowing that to like, you know, there's different practices to bring the sexual energy to different parts of the body. So it's almost like we're bathing our entire body in the creative life force that creates all life on the planet. I mean, if that's not powerful for undoing some of this stuff that we've been taught by culture and media and religion and society about our bodies and about the ways that we should look, I don't know what is.
Thank you. There was a question with regards to what you shared about the breast massage in the Q&A that might be now a good time to include. In relation with breast massage, how do we share such tips and empathize with those who had surgeries or breast cancer?
Yeah, beautiful question. I'm really glad that got brought up. So for a woman who has, it kind of depends like what stage a woman is in breast cancer. If a woman has an active tumor, then it's generally better not to do breast massage, but it is such a beautiful practice to, maybe you can't really see, like my hands right now are not actually touching my breasts, they're just in the energy field of them. To be there and to connect, to smile, to send positive energy, to use the affirmations maybe, to just like, to feel the breasts returning back to their normal, natural, healthy functioning. To spend time there. You know, a lot of the time, whether it's something like breast cancer or even if there's some kind of a like deep wounding that happens in the breasts or in the yoni, the tendency is to want to escape and go away and be like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to go there, like, you know, to really like push it aside. And one of the antidotes can be, can I go there and meet this with loving presence? Just holding it, just being with it. And then on the other side of that, for a woman who has maybe had a mastectomy, who's been through breast cancer before, this is the same for a woman who's had a hysterectomy or had ovaries removed. You can absolutely still connect with the energy center that's there in these different parts of the body, in these different organs. So for a woman who's had her breasts removed, you can totally still massage the area of the heart and of the breast. You can, like I've actually worked alongside women who have had breasts removed, who have done breast massage, And I have worked with women who have begun to feel like they have energetic breasts. So even though the physical breasts are not there anymore, they actually can feel like, oh my gosh, like it's like there are physical breasts there, they're in the energy field. Likewise, I have worked with women before who have had their cervix removed in a full hysterectomy, and they can develop the capacity to have energetic cervical orgasms. So this is possible for any woman, even a woman, of course, who still has these physical organs. But this just, points to something I mentioned earlier, like the resilience of the female body and the female energy body. It's like we still, like, no matter what we have been through as women, and we have been through so much individually and collectively as women, and still continue to go through so much, but there's still always, always, always the ability and the capacity to reconnect. And I believe to work with whatever we have faced in our bodies and whatever we're facing collectively to help us to rise to new heights of connection and intimacy and pleasure and purpose and passion, first with ourselves. And then, of course, if we choose to share that with anyone, the ability of that is there as well.
Thank you, Hilary. Another question that came up in the chat, which I find very important, is how do we share this with girls, with daughters, nieces, with, like, how young can we start sharing this as women, and how can we pass this on?
Yeah, I love this question so much. Thank you so much for asking this. It's one that women are really curious about. In my grand vision of the world, we live in a world where these kinds of practices are natural and normal for all women, and it's something that gets passed down just by our own embodiment. So I'll answer this question in a couple of parts. Like, I really believe that the best way to start to pass these things down to our daughters and our nieces or the other young girls and women in our lives is to do the practices ourselves and to really begin to experience the effects of them in our own bodies. Something that I just lights me up about this work so deeply is that when women start to do these practices in their own bodies and lives, and when they start to experience the life-changing effects, they can't possibly not share about it with everyone in their lives. And people start noticing it also. Like there's almost like an inner glow that starts to come about. So to share this with children and with daughters, again, I really believe that the number one best way to do this is to practice it in yourself, to embody it yourself. And this will naturally start to shift the ways that you relate to your own sexuality and that you relate to your daughter's developing sexuality. I'm not a mama, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I can imagine that I can think back to my own mother who, of course, wasn't doing these practices. Most women, we're really lucky now living in the world because we're actually some of the first women who are having wider access to these kinds of practices. But for most of our mothers, they didn't have an embodiment conference to go to learn about this kind of stuff. So, when we're carrying our own shame around sexuality or our own shame around our female bodies, or when we don't have a connection that's really resting in love and honor and just reverence for our female bodies, if we don't have this, then we're not passing that on to our daughters. If we do have this, we're very naturally passing it on to our daughters just through our own embodiment. So beginning to practice it yourself is the best way for your daughters to begin to naturally feel it in their own bodies. But to answer the question a little bit more specifically, there's not a certain age. I think that it would be beautiful if we lived in a world where every girl who got her period, she had some sort of celebration. This was a normal, natural thing. She was really honored in her body. Maybe it's not her mother, but maybe there's a village auntie who is initiating her into some of these practices. But again, just for like I work with a lot of women who have children, and I'm so inspired because their children are starting to grow up knowing that mom has her time where she goes into the room, into the bedroom, and she's by herself. And this is her time where she's actually doing these kinds of practices. I know so many mamas who have yoni eggs or jade eggs, and their children are very aware of what they are and that they're practicing with them and why they're practicing with them. So again, like, it's not necessarily a certain age, but it's like, as you're really like working with these practices in your own body and your life, it's like your daughters are going to grow up with them from the time that they come out of your body, you know? And that's like, it's such a beautiful, beautiful, and in my feeling and opinion, a world-changing way to work with this stuff. Like, it goes well beyond just how you experience your own body or your sexuality. It's like, when we start to work with these practices, it affects our children, our families, our relationships, our communities, and the whole world. It's like, it actually goes even beyond that, because how we relate to the feminine inside of ourselves, that's how we relate to the feminine outside of ourselves, and the earth and the water. So it's really like very life and world changing things, in my opinion, that we're talking about.
Thank you. While you were speaking, a few comments in the chat added to this as well. Harmony shared how she has books about this around the house, so her daughter picks them up and it has her own curiosity and asks questions. Also, like you said, the copying. Also, she shared that she allowed her daughter to choose her own celebration into bleeding. Yeah. And they went to buy special jewelry for that, so that to turn that into a celebration, for instance.
Yeah, totally. Yep. And I mean, that's another thing. It's like, how we as women and as mothers, how we relate to our own blood. Like, this is absolutely going to get passed on to our daughters. Like, if we're relating to our own blood with a sense of, oh my gosh, like, my moon time is here, my blood time is here, this is a sacred time, and I go inward and I really nourish myself. This is a very different thing that we're passing on to our daughters than if we're bleeding and we're just powering through our lives, or if we're bleeding and there's a sense of shame there or disgust there or something like that. And I absolutely don't mean to shame any woman who might experience shame or disgust or even like a neutrality with her own blood. But, you know, it's just something to think about. Like, children are very, very impressionable, and the ways we relate to our own body functionings, like, this is how they're going to relate to theirs as well.
Thanks. I have a couple more questions I'd like to pick up at the end, so maybe in 5 minutes. But for the next 5 minutes, I still want to ask you, because you mentioned it a couple of times, the yoni egg. And I know that you have a few pointers for women who are curious to engage with this practice around safety as well. So maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, sure. So just very briefly, for anyone who's not familiar with the yoni egg, I actually have one back here, so I'll show you. So this is a yoni egg, or a jade egg. So this practice comes from the Taoist tradition, and I could talk for 3 hours just about this egg right now, so I'm going to keep it super, super simple and basic. Essentially, this egg is a tool, and it goes inside of a woman's vagina, kind of like this. There is a little hole that's drilled through it, and there's a string that stays on the outside. And there are different exercises that you can do with your vagina to do many, many different things. The cool thing about the jade egg is that it's a holistic tool. So all at the same time, it's supporting a woman to create a new relationship with her yoni, to connect really, really deeply with her yoni. This is an amazing, amazing tool for healing, for clearing away shame, trauma, any sort of judgment that's in the body, conditioning. And this is the most magnificent tool for awakening your pleasure and your orgasmic ability as a woman. because on a basic physical level, what this is doing is toning and strengthening the muscles inside of your entire pelvis. And when your muscles are toned and when they're strong, you feel them more. There's more sensation. There's more blood flow that happens through there. And when you have stronger, more toned muscles and there's more sensation there, you have more pleasure. You have more orgasms. And another amazing effect of this practice is just like a deep sense of groundedness and empowerment and beauty in your own sexuality that's in your own hands. It's not in like a healer or a doctor or your partner or a book or a therapist or anything like that. It's for you. So Christina, you mentioned the safety with the egg. So yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot, how to be safe with the jade egg. So there are two main things that I want to say. And the first is that if you are buying a jade egg, make sure you know your source. So now, unfortunately, there's a lot of fake jade eggs that are being sold. And by fake jade, I just mean stones that are cheaper and softer than jade, like serpentine or onyx, that are sold as jade, but they're not real jade. The reason why you don't want to use one of those is because they tend to be porous and they can crack or they can break. Jade is not porous, which means bacteria cannot get inside of it. And jade is also stronger than steel. So I can really I could like slam this jade on the table or on a rock and it absolutely won't break. So this is how you assure the safety of what you're using. Know that it is 100% certified, either nephrite jade or jadeite jade. These are the only two kinds of jade that are available in the world. This is nephrite jade. It's definitely more popular for yoni eggs than jadeite jade. So that's number one of how you assure safety of using this practice. The second is that you clean it properly. So jade is super, super dense and tough. Like I said, it's stronger than steel. So you can actually pour boiling water on this, or you can put it right in a pot and heat it on the stove for 5 minutes or so and let the boiling water purify and disinfect it. But like I said, this is non-porous. Jade is non-porous, so bacteria can't get inside of that. So you actually can just wash this with soap and water after every time you use it. And then when you want to give it like a deep clean, then you can boil it. And that's the way to stay safe with it. One more thing that I will say how to be safe with a jade egg is to definitely get one that has a hole in it. I'll try to hold this up. Yeah, so you can see the hole. Not all eggs have holes in them, which means not all eggs have string. So again, the string stays on the outside of you like a tampon string. And there's two purposes of the string. One is so that you can easily remove the egg. Now it's impossible for the egg to get lost inside your body, but it can get very far up in there. And if your muscles aren't developed, so you can't push it out, or you have short fingers, so you can't grab it out, which happens in a very small % of women, but it's possible. This is why you want to use the string, just so that you can remove it easily. There's also a lot of amazing exercises that you can do with the string. So definitely make sure you have a 100% certified pure jade egg and that it has a hole drilled through it for a string.
Great, thank you, Hilary. And I'm aware you could be talking about this for a whole session. We posted your website link here as well, and I suspect that people can get some information there.
Yeah, I have a whole section, yoni eggs.
Great. We have another few minutes, and there are a few questions in the chat, and I was wondering if you're willing to attend to these now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what came up are questions around gender. So what do you do when it's difficult identifying with your own gender? Like, where's that kind of physiological difference? And that's the first one. So how would it be for a person who has a difficult time identifying with their gender?
Yeah, this is an amazing question. I'm so happy that it got brought up in this discussion. So these practices can be done by anyone who either is physiologically born female or anyone who identifies as a woman or as female. So let's say, for example, that we're talking about someone who was born into a male body who feels that they identify more either as being a woman or as being non-binary. This individual can absolutely do these practices and have them be an amazing asset for them, developing sensitivity to their more feminine nature if that's what they're wanting to do. So really, like, you know, I find this is a question that I get a lot, and like people will ask, like, can someone who is transgender, for instance, do these practices or come to these classes? And the answer is yes, because again, anyone who wants to work with the female body, whether it's, you know, more like you were born into that body, or whether it's like you're wanting to cultivate your feminine energy. So actually someone born into a man's body who identifies as a man who wants to cultivate his feminine more, he can absolutely do these practices. So for a man to sit and be with his heart and to cultivate the energy in his heart, this is a negative pole traditionally in a man's body. This, I mean, this goes into like kind of another area of like another topic, but this is a very, very beautiful and powerful thing for a man to do. So again, anyone can do these practices no matter where they identify on the gender spectrum, if what they're wanting to do is to cultivate the feminine and the feminine energies in their body.
Great. With that, you also addressed the other question, which is like, how would a man in a male body identifying as a man engage with these practices? So
Yeah,
so move on to the, yeah, go for it.
Maybe I'll just say one more thing about that, because, you know, men ask this all the time. So it's, you know, there's different practices that I won't specifically go into now, but it's similar things. So for a man going to his penis, which is his positive pole, generally speaking, and developing a connection there, not where he's needing to get anything, not where he's needing to ejaculate or needing to experience pleasure, but where he's going there and he's breathing with it and he's having his attention there. And maybe he's cultivating a little bit of pleasure, but again, not with a need to put it anywhere or to do anything with it or go anywhere. This is one beautiful way for a man to begin to develop these practices in himself. The self-massage in his penis and his testicles, connecting with his heart, moving the energy from the heart into the penis. This is an amazing practice for a man to do.
Glad you shared a few more words about this. The other question that came up in the Q&A was how the skin sensitivity gets affected by our thoughts, judgments, or fears, and is there any effect of our own inner state to our very external physical layer?
Can you read that one more time, Christina?
Yeah, so how does the skin sensitivity get affected by our thoughts, judgments, and fears? So like how our inner state might actually affect our external physical layer.
Yeah, totally. Oh, such an amazing question. We could talk a long time about this also. I think it's hugely, hugely affected. Like when we're either thinking negatively about ourselves, or we have a lot of shame, or we have a lot of judgment, or even if we're holding like trauma in our body, whether it's a more severe trauma or even a more mild trauma, this can absolutely, and it does, it affects our sensitivity, it affects how much we can feel, it absolutely affects our levels of pleasure that we can experience in the body. You know, in my case, it used to be that my body was completely numb and shut down. I could barely experience pleasure. Orgasm was very difficult for me. And I've seen this in a lot of women also, completely resensitize the body, not by going in with the mind and saying, okay, I'm going to resensitize the body, but just by doing these practices. It's like it happens all on its own. It's kind of like, you know, I use this analogy a lot of these practices with exercise or with yoga. It's like you go to the gym or you go to your yoga mat and you do the practice and your body starts to become more healthy. If you're doing a yoga practice or a meditation practice, you start to become more aware and more connected with the body. It's the same thing with these practices. When you do embodied feminine self-care practices, all of this, like these negative ideas and the shame and the self-judgment and the wounding that we're carrying, it comes up, but it also falls away and clears space for our own inner natural radiance and creative life force sexual essence to come through. And that resensitizes your body from the inside out.
Beautiful. Okay, one last question. I'm not sure we have the time to really answer this, was why I find it difficult to have orgasms with my husband and not other men with whom I have a relationship.
Yeah. Could be many reasons. I absolutely don't know the answer to this, but I mean, it could be a lot of things, like a lot of different topics that come up when I discuss this with women is a sense of feeling safe. Like that's one thing. Maybe it feels somehow safer for you to surrender to someone who's not your husband. Maybe there's like some sense of novelty or excitement there with someone who's not your husband. I mean, it could be so many different things. Like, and it's actually, you know, it's really common for women to experience either something like this, or like another question I get a lot is like, why can I have an orgasm with my husband, but I can't with myself? Or why can I have an orgasm with myself, but I can't with my husband or with my partner? And again, like we don't have so much time to go into these topics, but it's something that comes up a lot. And like, yeah, maybe like I'm happy for anyone who wants to go deeper into this to reach out to me, because it's a fascinating thing. And I used to experience it a lot in my own body as well. And there's a huge wide range of reasons why this could be happening.
Thank you, Hilary. I also want to include the pointer to the previous session we had, which was talking a lot about how to keep the spark, how to keep something hot in a long-term relationship. And we've had a couple of other sessions that might give you a few techniques or tips around that. And otherwise, yes, reach out to Hilary, either via Facebook, her website, or any other way. I want to just announce a couple of things before I hand the mic back to you for a final question. And they relate to the conference and what's coming up after. So in between sessions, we have coffee breaks you might know about, that are spaces, rooms, actually Zoom meetings that allow you to engage with other participants. This is a beautiful space to ask questions to each other, to discuss whatever you've attended and learned, and maybe integrate some of the content you have here. So don't underestimate the power and the value of that. It's really about creating community as well. We'll post the links to that in the chat right now, but also you can find them on the website. The other bit is that if you feel like this is so overwhelming, there's so much content here, or you want to rewatch Hilary's session, all sessions are available 48 hours after they've been held. So you can access them for free. But if you consider maybe wanting them for even longer, I really encourage you to consider the upgrade. During the conference, it's still half price, and you'll also support this beautiful project. And last but not least, the next session coming up is with Paul Bunsen, who is also a friend of mine and has created an amazing practice for men. So it's going to be a bit more active, a bit more movement. It's about wild embodiment. So make sure to tune back in. That's in an hour. And then I want to hand the mic back to you for our last question, which is, what is your number one or top tip to stay embodied?
To do little bits of these practices almost every day. I don't like to say every day because I know that's not realistic, but to find little pockets of time to do these practices. So even connecting with your breath for 30 seconds, breathing into your yoni for 30 seconds, doing a breast massage for 2 minutes in the shower or when you get out of the shower. The thing with these practices is that a little bit goes a very long way, and it's much better to do a little bit more consistently than it is to do like one hour-long practice, I don't know, every week or two or something like that. And also, like, I would love to add in there, Christine, I hope it's okay to say this, but in my Facebook group, I live stream embodied feminine self-care practices every Monday for free, of course. And my Facebook group is called the Jade Temple Sisterhood. So you're so welcome to come and experience the different embodied feminine self-care practice, a 5-minute practice every week if you want to.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to post this in the Facebook group of this channel as well. Thank you so much, Hilary. This was such a beautiful session. I really, really love that you joined us.
I'm so honored and so happy to be able to share this work with women and men of the world. Thank you so much.